Good evening and welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle with your host Kilu Nyasha and Brian Sherry, Engineering. Tonight I am very pleased to bring to you two of my dearest comrade brothers who have been in the struggle for a very long time. They've been known as members of the San Quentin Six, defendants in a trial that at the end of 1976 was called the longest trial in California history. It stemmed from the events of August 21st, 1971. So I have with me Bato Talamantez, who is with California Prison Focus and also is the host of a program heard on weekly on KPOO 89.5 FM titled Prison Focus. I rarely miss it. It's very informative and brings you information not heard elsewhere about this California prison system. My second guest is Willie Sundiata Tate, a dear friend and brother who is with an organization, All of Us or None. And they are a group who is attempting to assist prisoners upon their release, and they have entry programs and so forth, and they will describe those. Sundiata also was a dear friend of George Lester Jackson, who was assassinated on August 21st, 1971 at San Quentin. And without further ado, I will go to Bato. Bato, welcome to Freedom.
Well, thank you very, very much, Kilu Nyasha, for all your praises. And also, I'm glad to be here with my comrade Sundiata, And I'm just, like I said earlier, I'm glad to be here at all because myself and Sundiata, we were at San Quentin, like you said, during the years of Comrade George Jackson. And yesterday, it was 37 years ago, of memories.
Right.
All those memories, and but at the same time, myself and Sunni, even though we're double OGs today, we've stood active, we've kept purpose in mind, we kept revolutionary principle as much as possible in mind to give me guidance in the work I need to do, because once again, California Prison Focus has been on the map for the last 15 years. Before that, we were the Pelican Bay Information Project here in California, as you recall. Mm-hmm. And the last of the San Quentin Six trial defendants is at Pelican Bay this day as we speak, Hugo Antonio Pinell.
Yes.
Our comrade. And of course, Rochelle Sinque McGee was there much earlier and later transferred to Corcoran.
Right.
But the work that we've done over the years also includes tens of thousands of unknown prisoners, a lot of whom we feel are unjustly in prison, despite the hysteria, the public hysteria against felons and, parolees, and the whole is a quagmire. The prison system is a quagmire of public opinion, usually negative, and so the work that we've done also has in a way helped to fortify what we have to do, because it's a very, very hard struggle from solitary confinement, as me and Sundiata were at San Quentin during the years of Comrade George Jackson. And we were both acquitted in the so-called San Quentin Six trial.
Right.
Very, very close to here now, at Marin County, But once again, it's been an everyday struggle. And the best way that I keep the prison system from swallowing me up is to keep it right in front of me as a reminder, but also as the entity to struggle against. The same entity that held us today held a lot of prisoners, that we feel need to be empowered so that they can have a voice about their own imprisonment. And George Jackson was such a voice.
Oh, absolutely.
Therefore, I feel personally that George Jackson was deliberately killed by the state to silence him, as were a lot of leaders, black leaders mostly during those years. So 37 years later, here today, I can testify to the fact that the struggle, la luta continua. And of course, I think my sentiments are like with Sundiata and the work that he does, we're two kind of old prison war horses, but at the same time, were reinvigorated by today's challenges, stepping forward today's challenges, because we've both had relatives ourselves, nephews and stuff in prison today.
Mm-hmm.
And California leads the country right now at 170,000 prisoners with 33 operational prisons alone here in California.
Right, absolutely. Thank you, Bato. And I want to move on to Sundiata Tate. Welcome to Freedom is a Constant Struggle. Thank you for joining us. And Sundi, you were in prison with George. And talk a little bit about how you met George and what he was like.
Thank you for inviting me to your show, Kilo. I met George in 1962 at Dual Vocational Institute at Tracy in the segregation unit. George had come down from Quentin. Him and a brother named Jimmy Carl.
Right.
And
that's one of his closest friends.
Yeah, Jimmy was one of George's closest friends. George was, when he came down from Quentin, he didn't stay in Seg that long. He stayed, seemed like to me, about a month or so. And then he went to the main line.
Mm-hmm.
And later on, he was locked up and came back to Seg. And one of the things about George is that even back then, in 1962, he was encouraging younger brothers to read, to study. And primarily how he taught people would be to engage in a conversation, say with Jimmy Carl, in enlightening conversation that would spread knowledge that he possessed to other people who were listening, so they would become conscious of certain things.
Mm-hmm.
George, in November, on Thanksgiving Day.
Of what year?
1962.
All right.
George organized a food strike by everybody in the segregation unit. And that consisted of black, brown, whites, all joining together and throwing their food out on a tier. That was in 1962. Subsequently, in December,
I'm sure that endeared him to the prison officials.
Hey, well, they intensely dislike people who organize.
Of course.
Resistance against their system. In December, George was transferred to San Quentin.
And that was 62?
That was 1962.
Right. And how long did he stay there before he went to Soledad? Do you know?
Well, I know that he was there when I came there in 66.
Right.
And he was locked up in January of 67. A riot had taken place on the lower yard. And the reason George was locked up was not because of, it wasn't actually a riot. What had taken place is that someone had been killed. And so what they had white people and black people, prisoners, who was on the upper yard, who separated one side by the kitchen where all the white boys.
It was totally segregated. We didn't turn off the cell phone. Oh my goodness. I better check mine. Okay. So go ahead.
So anyway, what happened is that George he was in the hospital, and his black brother had been jumped on. Excuse me.
Uh-huh. Can you turn it off, hon?
I'm trying.
Okay.
So anyway, the brother came to the hospital where George was working at. He had been jumped on by some white prisoners. So George returned back to the unit where the brother had been jumped on. That's the same unit George was housed in. And George basically charged about 5 white prisoners, and to get away from him, some of them jumped off the tier. And George was locked up for that. But George was...
Sundi, discuss the climate and the environment in which, as I understand it, the environment was hostile and racist toward black and brown prisoners, and especially blacks at that particular time.
Well, prison system was very racist. At Tracy, in particular, it was just vicious. In the adjustment centers, you would hear all night people yelling out, "nigger, nigger, nigger," and making nigger jokes. Mm-hmm. And at that time, it was only like about 5 black people in the entire adjustment center. And that was really damaging psychologically, to be tortured by that, because you would hear that all night. I have a partner that's out here on the streets named Sonny Mosley. He experienced the same thing, and me and him recently were just talking about the psychological damage that it does to you to hear someone belittling your race and talking about you as though you was not even a human being.
Right.
You know, so
that was the climate at the time. And Bato, let me bring you back in. You were in prison also, and talk a little bit about your prison experience.
Well, I'm originally from Los Angeles, and if you really want to get into a pre-prison situation, is the Los Angeles County jails and juvenile halls, the dungeons there, prepped me early on as a youthful offender and the Youth Authority here in California. And so I pretty much grew up in the California prison system, both youth and adult, and I was at San Quentin the first time around in 1960 in a bus that in fact had Jimmy Carr on it with us, and we came up from Tracy, brought up there for just raising hell. I think, you know, we were like in the period of transitioning from Youth Authority, which dual vocational Tracy is kind of the last stop, and into the San Quentin scenario. And we were all very youthful Youth Authority offenders, and we arrived at San Quentin in 1960, and then of course I was sent to Soledad. And
we have a call coming through.
Okay.
It's no call?
And
Okay,
all through my experience, there was thousands and thousands and thousands of faces and people that I knew. And I met George Jackson early on in the system, you know, and he originally, I think, came out of Los Angeles also, you know.
Right,
but
he did.
The Youth Authorities, Jimmy Carr, we were at Paso Robles in 1958.
Right.
That's how far back, and some of the other comrades that Sundiata and I knew. Myself and Sundiata knew a lot of the youth of those times, offenders who later on transitioned into prison, as I did myself. So I got a good schooling, and I also was able to differentiate between prisoners who were caught in the criminal mentality mode, completely absorbed in it, you know, which prison, in a sense, degenerates you or it regenerates you, you know, so you can build up in prison, you know, like
it either makes you or breaks you.
Malcolm X, George Jackson, a lot of great people have come within the entrails of the beast, the belly of the
absolutely.
beast, as you agree, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that experience in my life, that I met a lot of revolutionaries that didn't even know they were revolutionary, because they put up resistance.
Right.
They didn't capitulate to the system, which the majority of prisoners do in one way or another. You compromise, you submit.
Right.
You put your hands out to get your handcuffs put on.
Right. George was definitely a resistor.
No, George fought the guards. You know, Sundiata fought the guards. I fought the guards, and in so doing, you put up resistance. You build up resistance over the years, It helps you survive, but it also makes you a special target.
We do have a call.
For the authorities. So
excuse me.
Move on, yeah.
I had forgotten to give out the number, but we do have a call coming in. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, sir. Sister, thank you very much. I watch your show. I love your show. I love you. Thank you.
Thank you. May I know who's calling?
Yes, my name is Isam Muhammad.
All right.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Brother Bato and Brother Sundiata for having the courage to share their experiences. And please ask them to comment on what someone like me can do in terms of their outreach programs. I really don't know where to start. And I'll take my answer offline. Thank you very much, sister.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Go ahead. You want to answer that?
Well, one of the big things that we do at California Prison Focus, we try to maintain the correspondence bridge, but the correspondence bridge is also a bridge in crisis. It's a correspondence crisis. Too much prisoner mail coming to too few places. Hundreds of pieces of mail that come to our organization, which is here in Oakland, California Prison Focus. We're also online, prisons.org. That is the test whether an organization, in fact, establishes communications with the prison class, because there's nowhere for them to write except to you if you're California Prison Focus. So we read a lot of mail trying to get back and respond.
And you produce a newsletter, don't you?
We produce a newsletter. We got a radio show. Mm-hmm. We got volunteers. Every fourth week of the month, there's a meeting. You know, we're ongoing investigators. Right now, we're down at Corcoran Prison, hopefully visiting Rochelle St-Hugh McGee. Right. Last month, we were up at Pelican Bay seeing who? Comrade Hugo Pinell.
Right.
So the work we do, even though it encompasses a lot of other prisoners, these individuals, just as Comrade Jackson, have served for us as inspirational points to keep the struggle going, because prison work is extremely hard.
Exactly.
As Sundiata can tell you himself.
Right. And Sundi, you're with All of Us and None.
All of Us and None is an organization that consists of formerly incarcerated prisoners, family members of those who are presently incarcerated or was formerly incarcerated, and friends of anyone who just want to be involved working on behalf.
And how can they get in touch with you?
And the kind of work we do, though, is, before I answer that question, I'd like to say what we do. We don't actually have programs where we, provide people with jobs, etc. We have a few jobs that's in our office that we can hire, a couple people coming out of prison. But that's basically it. What we do is try to change policy. Mm-hmm. And that means we go down to Sacramento or whatever state we're in several states, and we try to change policy on behalf of people coming home from prison or while they are in prison.
Right. And you also have been doing a Remove the Box campaign.
Yeah, that's a job thing we do. It's called Ban the Box.
Ban the Box.
Which means ban the question on job applications that asks whether you have a felony or a conviction.
Right. Right, because that just automatically loses the job before you even get a chance. So it's very important. We're running clean out of time. We only have a couple of minutes left. So I want to call attention to the fact that George Jackson wrote 2 books, Soledad Brother, The Prison Letters of George Jackson, and posthumously published Blood in My Eye. And I highly recommend both because for me, they're reference books. They're even more appropriate today than they were in 1971 because things have gotten so infinitely worse. So now I would like to give you just about 30 seconds each to wrap up.
People should read Blood in My Eye. As George completed the manuscript, I was the tear tender at the time, and I would stop and talk with him in his cell, and he wrote all day with old stubby lead pencil on big, long yellow sheets. I
know, I used to get them in the mail.
And he completed his manuscript there, and yes, that book should be read along with the Soledad Brother letters.
Absolutely.
All of Us and None. Phone number is 415-255-7036.
That's 255-7036.
Extension 337.
Extension 337. Thank you so very much. And I now have a minute left in which I can invite you all to celebrate Black August, the commemoration of our heroes and sheroes, but especially George Jackson, William Christmas, Jonathan Jackson, James McLean, and so many other martyrs in our struggle, Qatari Golden. We're going to honor and celebrate their martyrdom on the 30th and the 31st at the East Oakland Youth Development Center, 82nd and International Boulevard in Oakland. On Saturday, it will go from noon until 8, and it will involve Cultural Solidarity Day Conference. So everyone of every nationality and culture is welcome. The main celebration and concert will be on Sunday and will go from 12 to 10 and will feature the Caribbean All-Stars, the Pomo dancers, the Okinawan Lion dancers, Emory Douglas, Nauru, yours truly, and many more. We're hoping Kumasi will come up from L.A. David Johnson, one of the San Quentin Six, may be coming up if he can make it. And we hope that you will all try to be there. We will have Shaka, one of the Tinin, one of the original organizers, and hopefully Kumasi on Freedom is a Constant Struggle next week. So be sure to tune in to SF Live, Cable 76 next week. Thank you very much for tuning in today. Thank my board op, Brian Sherry, and all power to the people. What's the call? Free them all! Free all political prisoners. Thank you so much for being my guests here on Freedom. And you will have to come back because we just didn't have enough time to cover it all. So once again,
thank you, Kilu.
Thank you, and power to the people.
Power to the people.
Power to the people.
Thanks.